Here we go. I'm Dave Johnson, along with George Wallace, Rob Woodfork, and on vacation, no less. You can tell from the sunscreen on his nose. That's wise. That's smart. Even though you're indoors, I still haven't quite figured that out. Dave Preston, but he never takes a week off. He's always with us on the WTOP Huddle. Glad you're with us as well. Yes, a lot to get through this week. The Nationals were basically at the midseason point, but we begin with the Washington football team. And that's what they are still called a year on from the announcement that they would be changing their name. And there's been some talk and some people saying, hey, we like that Washington football team name. Rob, who is our resident lawyer, points out trademark might be an issue, so you can't trademark that. But the point being is we know this week, the news this week, Warriors is out. I never thought that was a great option. Again, and initially that was where I think some of that groundswell came from. Daniel Snyder had trademarked that or done something with it because in case he activated an Arena Football League expansion franchise. Not that there's anything wrong with Arena Football League nicknames, but that's what Warriors was all about. This was back when Jerry Jones had the Dallas Desperados and the Arena Football League plan was to get NFL franchises involved. That being said, no Warriors. They say early 2022 we'll have a decision. George Wallace, you're on the clock. You like what we have now? What do you want to see?
I don't like the Washington football team. I think it's going to be, I want to see a name. I want to see a logo. I think, and the main reason I think you're not going to see Washington football team stick, and Dave went through this before with the Wizards, you sell all this merchandise. You've made money last year in the Washington football team. Then in 2022, you're going to get a new name, a new logo, and then you're going to make a lot more money on a whole new rebrand. So that is my thinking on that. I think that they're going to come up with a name. They're going to they're going to keep the colors, which we know, no Native American imagery, which is smart. You got to get away from it all. And then, come up with something. Now, having said all that, they got 40,000 submissions. If, what's going to happen if they're sitting in that room and you can't agree on something? I would love to be in the final decision there. Who's going to come up and say, all right, this is the winner? I mean, I don't know how that worked, Dave, with the Wizards and the Bullets. I know they did the public forum for the Wizards, right? But was it a final, did Abe Pollin finally say this is the final call? I would assume he's got to have the final say. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all comes down. Jason Wright said they've narrowed it to their short list of names based on research and analytics. And, that's what we do all these days. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do come up with. But I think it's not going to be the Washington football team. That is my guess. I think you're going to see a new name and new logo.
It's interesting to bring up the Wizards because this came up a year ago. Somebody was doing a feature on this, and I asked somebody inside the organization, it's 20 years on, give me the real story. Was it a predetermined name or et cetera? And the reality was it was a fan balloting that did decide it. And now I will say, as you looked at the ballot, I can't remember the other two choices, but Wizards was the only one I liked because I was on board with Washington Seawolves, so that's one way.
Sea Dogs. That's what I'm saying. Like they had like two options that were actually viable, and the rest were complete trash names.
Right.
How is Sea Dogs in any way, shape, or form related to Washington in any way? That's terrible. That sounds like a minor league baseball team.
Right, and there is a minor league baseball. I think they were in Portland, right? Sea Dogs. And again, that's part of the challenge here, coming up with a nickname for a Washington team right away. I remember what the Wizards people saying, calling the humidity as we speak here in July, or everything goes government oriented. Rob, again, let me just say this. I like Washington football team. I agree. Maybe that's and you do too.
Yeah. I think there's and George will appreciate this. I think there's a Seinfeldian simplicity to going by Washington football team, because what sport more than football is so team oriented that you can rally around the fact that we don't even have an external we don't even have an external figure to attach our identity to. Like, we're just team. We're all about team. So much so that we just call ourselves team. So for Washington, I like the logo that they have in place now. I like the sort of simplicity of just being called the Washington football team. But I think they box themselves in a corner because it's so generic that they can't get an actual copyright for it. So they've kind of boxed themselves in a position where they have to pick a name and sort of get that sort of external thing to rally around. So I have been on the record multiple times as saying I really like the name Federals. It fits in line with the Capitals and the Nationals. And I am all about a scenario in which we have a stadium full of people screaming, "Here come the Feds." So that entire thing right there. And actually, when I interviewed Jason Wright, I told him that. And he said, and I quote, "I'm here for it." So I hope that in some way I influence them to choose the name.
And
Oh
also,
man, can you imagine if this?
Oh.
Can you imagine if
We'll
this
never hear the end of
happens?
it.
Oh
man.
my God!
and by the way, Washington
I'll be more
Federals,
insufferable about that than Cam Newton, George. I can
Yeah, right.
assure you of that.
Oh, thank you.
which will be the quarterback coach of the Federals. Trust me, one day, Cam Newton. And the Federals were the USFL team in the city
Yeah,
in 1983 and 84.
Yeah.
But I think the statute of limitations, it's been so long ago that you can move on
Right.
from that. And it needs to be noted the Colorado Avalanche, of course, we know them from Denver. There was a Denver Avalanche that actually was pretty successful in indoor soccer for a few years. So you can bring back a name if you like it. Dave Preston, before the sunscreen falls off your nose, I know. Oh, you've got a great suggestion.
Get a real line.
I'm all in on the Federals. You know, there's enough of a memory of a team that was called the Federals, but not enough of the memory to remember how bad they were when they were here. I think they went 3-15 or 2-16 in both seasons. They moved to, I think, Orlando or something along those lines. What I would prefer is maybe a W on the side of the helmets. I know our friend Bruce, who calls in all the time and leaves messages on our computer. He actually threw that suggestion in, so I can't take that on my own. But I'd rather have a W than a numeral on the side of the helmets. Just my 2 cents there.
Actually, I would prefer that they don't put anything on the helmets. I think that there's a simplicity and there's like a sort of I just like it. I think it's clean. I think it just like the Browns. The Browns don't need a logo, just give me the helmet. I would like for them to bring the stripe back down the middle of the helmet, the burgundy and gold stripe. But yeah, I don't think they need anything on the helmet. I think it's kind of goofy to put the numbers on there.
I think the big thing is not just the change of the name. John Keim on ESPN did a piece recently on just what an incredible year it has been for that franchise, from the shakeup in the front office, the shakeup in the broadcast booth, the coach having cancer, surviving cancer, the player with the compound fracture starting and winning games. This has been a year, and during the COVID pandemic, I'm sure we said, wow, this March of 2020 is the longest year ever. Well, the last year for the Washington franchise has been one heck of a ride. It's felt like 10 years of drama in just 12 months.
All right, there we have it. And again, I'm on the record of liking the Washington football team. I think it's simple and direct, unlike the government. So that is a good selling point for a team from Washington. Nationals, George Wallace, the story you like so far from this team that is dancing on the fault line. They're not out of it, but you know what? It could swing the other way if they get into a losing skid. And what do they need going forward?
yeah, it's funny. They're right. It's going to be interesting. The last 4 games didn't help against the Giants, and out west. Okay, you split with the Padres. Very good test the last couple of weeks of this first half of the season. But when you look at 9 guys, I think now, what is it on the injured list? Is that what it is? 9. I mean, you can hope that maybe in the next couple of weeks you start to get some guys back, because, and I know we've touched on it before, and then within the last couple of weeks, I didn't think we were heading there, but Mike Rizzo's going to have decisions to make here in the next couple of weeks as we hit towards the end of July already. 6 back right now, in no way are they out of it. No, because nobody wants to take this division. Now you got Acuna going down. The Mets aren't that good. So you I don't think I would blow the whole thing up in a couple of weeks and just hope again that you get Steven Strasburg back. You hope Kyle Schwarber's hamstring isn't as bad as it looked and sounds. And you get guys, you get Trey Turner starting to hit, Juan Soto starting to hit, guys starting to kind of get their groove. And, Max Scherzer even mentioned Steven Strasburg in his all-star press conference yesterday about, look out, if we get him back, we're going to start to go. Back end of the bullpen starting to come around. Gerardo Parra has been a bright spot. Who would have thought? Victor Robles, Starlin Castro. If they can the schedule is going to be a little more favorable now than it was the last couple of weeks, playing all these top dogs in the West. And you still have your division in front of you. So I don't think they're out of it, but you can't come out of the break and lose like 4 out of 5. Because if that's the case, then you're going to fall further and further back. I mean, I think they're 9 back now in the wild card. So these next couple of weeks, you have to stay within striking distance.
Hey, Preston.
I think the best story, sadly, was Joe Ross's father saving someone in the stands last weekend with using the Heimlich maneuver. This has been one of those years where even the good stories have a tinge of not awesome in them. Meaning, Kyle Schwarber has a massive June, a June for all time, and then hurts his hamstring in the second game of their series against the Dodgers, and they wind up getting swept there. As George mentioned, lots of questions coming up, and with the different trading deadline this year, where it's the hard July 31st, they have to make some decisions. You'd like to see Max finish the productive part of his career as a Washington National, meaning maybe get one more contract, and then if he wants to sign on for something out of that, great. Because looking forward, is there anyone out in the free agent market that you would rather have that for the money that you'd be paying Max Scherzer than Max Scherzer? Some good stories. Trey Turner has played really well. And I've been impressed with the play of Eric Fetty at times. Joe Ross has done well at times when he's not been hurt. The problem is everybody has gotten hurt. Everyone has gotten hurt throughout the course of the last couple of weeks or so. And this All-Star break is coming at a perfect time. Hopefully they'll be sharp and they can take 2 of 3 from San Diego.
All right, Rob Woodfork.
I mean, how can we not mention Kyle Schwarber in the hot streak that he was on in the month of June? I mean, I don't know where they are right now without that. Moving him to the leadoff spot looks like pure genius. And then you have to wonder why he wasn't in the leadoff spot to begin with. But Kyle Schwarber, a big story in the first half. In the second half, we really need to see more from Juan Soto. I got to mention, he was the star of the home run derby, because that face-off between him and Shohei Ohtani in the first round, that was by far the best part of the home run derby, even though neither guy ended up winning it. So, and we were really close to not only getting sort of a battle of the beltways in that final, but we were really close to getting a really great feel-good story with Trey Mancini beating cancer, and then potentially getting a home run derby title. So we just got to give it up for what was a very fun, and you know me, guys, I'm a grouch when it comes to all-star stuff. It's just it's lost on me because I'm over
just all-star stuff.
I mean, a lot of stuff, but especially all-star stuff, regardless of the sport. But the home run derby was absolutely, it was a home run last night. I was a fan of what we saw.
By the way, real quick, speaking of that, I don't want to get off topic, Dave, but how do we feel about Pete Alonso up there dancing, showing this as he's up there about to win? Do we like that in a home run derby? Is it cocky? What do we think about that?
I didn't like who he was doing it against. I mean, obviously, because we have sort of the local ties somewhat to the Orioles, but I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. I'm not one of those people who, like, in baseball, guys who like flip the bat and, look at their home run. I mean, you made the play, so you get to strut a little bit. Nobody but baseball has a problem with that. You do it in basketball, nobody cares. You do it in football, nobody cares. Baseball, for some reason, I'm supposed to act like I'm in church after I hit a home run. So I'm here for anybody showing that level of emotion after they do something really special, because they were crushing balls last night.
Oh, yeah.
They were crushing balls. And 520 feet from Juan, and then Ohtani hit 6 of 500 feet. Those are both records. Unbelievable.
No, I'm the same with it. With a home run derby, just go ahead and have some fun. Having said this, in basketball, I'm with Hall of Famer Wes Unseld, that if some of the shenanigans he's seen in the NBA would go on, they'd settle with a hard foul the next time down the court. So that's his philosophy. You wouldn't be dunking on Wes Unseld. We say go ahead. George is still there. George, why don't we well, first of all, I'll give you my Nationals player to throw out there that I think, and he's been maligned at times, there's no question, but I think the ability of Starlin Castro to step in at third base when that was such a big question mark in the spring, and he hits the All-Star break with a 14-game hitting streak over that time, batting .479. So he's an example of if the Nationals are going to have success, as Max Scherzer says, they know how to play from behind like they did in 2019. You're going to have to continue to get contributions and play from Starling Castro, not only in the field, but also at the plate. And then the state the obvious, Steven Strasburg comes off the injured list and makes a difference. I think that probably has to happen to cinch it, because with Paulo Espino and everyone else, they've been kind of winning with lasers and mirrors, but at some point they're going to need Strasburg in this equation. George, any other thoughts, Nationals otherwise, before we have to run into a sportscast and update the masses?
You know what? No, but I was going to throw out there since we are up to the minutes here, are we worried about the Team USA after 2 straight losses to Australia? Popovich isn't worried. He's talking about progress. They've been together 5 days. I get that. But should we be worried?
Well, let's go to Rob Woodfork.
Yeah, this was going to be my parting shot today, actually. And it does have kind of a local tie because Grant Hill is going to be taking over USA basketball. We all know he played his high school ball at South Lakes in Virginia. But I hope that the big thing that he does, one of the first things that he does once he takes over, is find a coach that is better suited to the international game. Nobody here is going to talk about Popovich not being a good coach. I think we all know that he is. He has been great in the NBA, but being an NBA coach is a very different skill set than being an international coach. It's the same sport, but it's a different game. So we need USA is what I mean. USA needs a coach that is more in tune with the international game, because here's the fact. They're playing against teams that are together pretty much all the time. And then we are taking a bunch of NBA players who haven't played together for the most part, throwing them together on a team and then expecting them to gel in like a week and a half.
Right.
It's not real life. You got to be able to get a team. You have to be able to get a coach who's able to handle that scenario and get the most out of that roster. And Popovich, he's 9-5 in 14 games as Team USA coach. That's not going to get it done. So I feel like, and again, this is not a diss that he can't coach. It's just that the international game is very different, and they need a coach with an international either background or just a better skill set that translates better to the international game.
What concerns me too with this Olympics in particular is that due to the pandemic, the late end of last season, the late end of this season, players' body clocks are a little bit off kilter as far as being able to rest, recuperate, recover, and then play in an Olympics. It's almost a perfect storm for things to go awry. It's Popovich's first Olympics with Team USA, so it's as the head coach. So there's that as well. And as you mentioned, the other nations guys play together a lot more often than Team USA does. So I am concerned until they put on the gold medal, and until they win that gold medal game, I will be somewhat nervous, and rightfully so.
Yeah. My party shot this week, something I was reminded of this week, that the Howard University golf team recently had a Bison at the Beach event. Steph Curry investing money in Howard University to create and help fund that golf program. And as much as we should celebrate Tiger Woods for encouraging diversity in golf, I think if there are more steps like we're seeing at Howard University, that is going to move the meter for diversity in golf in so many ways. We're in education and golf is part of the spectrum. And this is also happening, and I know that the search continues, and I did a feature on the Black youth hockey movement with the Capitals back in February. Tennessee State is looking into creating a college hockey program. These are the kind of steps that are being taken. They're small steps, and we're only talking 2 schools here. But when we talk about ways, how can we create diversity? My belief is when you establish something at a college program, now we're really talking about the potential for significant progress. All right, guys.
Definitely invest in HBCUs, and that's coming from somebody who went to an HBCU.
Where'd you go?
I went to Oakwood College in Huntsville, Alabama. Third generation.
And they're the Oakwood what?
They're the ambassadors. So maybe the Washington football team can take
throw
that.
Throw it in the ring.
Well, all right. Well, I was
One
just going to say
thought
about
on-
ambassadors. As the oldest person in the room, here's a trivia question for you. The World Football League franchise in Washington that never played was called the Washington Ambassadors. Jack Pardee was supposed to be the head coach, but the problem was they couldn't get a stadium deal sorted out, and I think they became the Florida Blazers. You might have to fact check me on that.
Oh,
one.
Wow.
But I do know
That's
they
a
were
good one.
supposed to be the
There's your
Google it.
trivia
There's
of
an
the week.
actual
grow
uniform
on.
and helmet. Dave Preston, I know you appreciate that I interrupted you for that fine fact that you couldn't live without, but
I think
So
so.
just-
Well, two things
Goodbye,
before we
everybody.
depart. We look across the pond. Novak Djokovic wins his 20th Wimbledon, or his 20th Grand Slam championship. You think of what he, Federer, and Nadal have been. They've won 60 of the last 72 men's Grand Slam championships, 17 of 18. They had 24 of 25 at one stretch. What an incredible achievement by Djokovic, who will likely go, well, he will go for the calendar Grand Slam this at the US Open, has a chance to pass both Federer and Nadal as far as career Grand Slams, both those guys getting older. It's much more likely that Djokovic wins at least 2 or 3 in the future than these guys win one more. Also, the Open Championship or the British Open tees off this Thursday. We have a preview on the sports page at WTOP.com. Did you know that Wales has yet to have a British Open champion? They're the only country in the United Kingdom. Even Jersey, a Commonwealth crown principality off the French shores in the Channel. They have a British Open champion.
and I thought my Washington Ambassadors fact was going to steal the show, but you did it as always.
Had to do
So,
something.
Hey, it's all in the Huddle newsletter too. This is the
Oh,
kind
wow.
of stuff you can get in the Huddle newsletter. Shameless plug. Sorry.
There we go. Plug away and make sure you include that as a trivia question there. That does it for this week's WTOP Huddle. For Dave Preston with the sunscreen indoors. We'll work on that for a while. George Wallace will do a sportscast. And the pride and joy of the Oakwood Ambassadors, Rob Woodfork. I'm Dave Johnson. Thanks for watching.
Break.
Break.